Parenthood, where we explore the beautiful chaos of parenting. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Parenthood, where we delve into the wonderful, complex, and always heartwarming world of parenting. I'm your host, Neha, and I'm so excited for today's episode because we have a very special guest with us. Today's guest is Jyoti Srivastava, an acquaintance turned cheerleader friend who lives in Dubai with her 7-year-old son Kushagra and her partner of 16 years, Sanal. By profession, Jyoti is a marketing and legal analyst. Her story is filled with love, laughter, and profound life lessons, making her a perfect fit for our podcast. Jyoti, welcome to the Parenthood. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Neha. That was an amazing introduction to have, and it is wonderful to know you through this last decade, although in bits and pieces.
Thank you. I have to start by saying how touched I was by your words about Sanal. You said he is single handedly the best decision I've ever made. So, even before I go into your introduction and you telling us about yourself, I want you to tell us about your relationship with him, how he supports you, how did you two meet, how it has been till now.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey so far with Sanal, and we kind of sit in corners at times and just say that we have this absolute peace in our house, and that comes a lot with the individuals present, and it comes from the spouse in this case. Talking about Sanal, I kind of bumped into him during my MBA days. So we were in Ahmedabad doing a postgraduate course in petroleum. We ended up being posted in different places. He was in Delhi and I was in Bombay at the time, but we kept in touch with constant communication because we were good friends at the time. And then eventually we realized that got to take this off to the next level and we started dating. It was wonderful. The only obstacle in there was it was always a long distance relationship. So we were in two different parts all the time, but I think we did a great job of communicating with each other and just being present. So it was quite a journey. And after 5 years together, we ended up getting married. We've been married for the past 10 years. Overall, journey has been 15 years. But I just realized simple decision of just choosing your life partner is by far the most important decision you ever make because it makes all your other decisions throughout your lifetime so much easier. If you're confident about the person and if you kind of understand how they think and how the two of you all become a team together, we have so many of our decisions which just goes unsaid because we understand how the other person thinks and interprets. So the critical thinking is very aligned for both of us. And that is wonderful because we don't have any issues in one person making a decision for the other. We just understand the situation. I think we have a better learning of who we are as individuals. That makes it really easy. We've taken some of very complex decisions in a heartbeat. It's kind of a dream run. In terms of arguments, literally had none. It is
Really?
strange. Yeah. Yeah, but we've literally had none because I think as personalities, we are very aware of each other and we also understand how Sanal or how Jyoti is going to react to this particular situation. And also now we know how Pashagra will react to a situation. So that awareness is very good to have. You obviously have your baseline in there. The good thing is like we are all pretty strong personalities. So we believe in our decision making abilities. So if there is a contradiction, we kind of lay it out there, absolute plain for a dummy, basically. And then we kind of contest it that how this would be better or that would be better. So there's a lot of conversation which goes on in the house. And Sanal is a really wise person to take a decision. I generally am a little apprehensive about other people deciding for me because I like my own decision making process. But with him, I understand. I think it's really a healthy atmosphere for also a child to see in because he knows that there are no preconceived notions and no judgments on the table. So he starts from a point where you got to put in the baseline, you got to talk the to's and fro's and pros and the cons. And then there's just like a healthy debate around it there. And of course, whichever side wins that debate, we go on from there. For my child to see that and be a part of that process, he's picking up a lot of interesting qualities for him to go into the future.
But
So yeah.
I'm so stuck on this one thing that you said, you've never had an argument. How does that work? How have you never had an argument or a fight in these 15 long years?
I think we are both like really proactive people. So we actually know if you do this, this results to this. We are just aware of how the other person would feel. We've gone about and always kept the other person in loop or taken care of. And we've never had situations where I'd have to tell him that, oh, you got to like do this because it's already done.
Wow. You are living the dream life.
I would gladly accept that. I think it was during the pandemic, and there was one quiet evening, and we were just the three of us in the room, and there was this instance, and we were like, we just looked at each other, and Sanal is like, this is like absolute sukoon. I don't know how people perceive it to be,
Yeah.
but just like being here with you guys, sometimes actually doing nothing,
Yeah.
is the ultimate peaceful sukoon which people look forward to.
Yeah, I am so in sync with what you say about peace, being at peace with just the little unit you have and, the little cosmos that you have made for yourself. But now going back to you and your introduction. So, if you were writing your autobiography, what would be its title and what chapter you are on currently?
I think I would name the autobiography as a small town girl.
Mhm.
And the chapter right now I would be like is finding purpose. I think purpose not from a professional standpoint, obviously, but from a personal standpoint, because about to turn 40 in like couple of months, there's been a whole lot of life which I've seen before 40, and just how I would foresee my life, not n number of years, but how do I foresee it from here onwards? Because touchwood, so far it's been a great journey,
Mhm.
and just thinking about how things could be, how things should be, how would you want it to be?
Have you done this before? Have you thought about your life, how it would turn out to be? And are you living the plan or are you just winging it?
No, I am actually a planner, but surprisingly, I never planned for life. People say, what's your 3 year plan or what's your 5 year plan? I'm like, there are no plans. But of course, every day meeting that small goal eventually turns it into a plan, which inherently is not plugged into my brains. I think for me, the biggest thing is just being the best version of yourself every single day.
Your journey with Sanal, with yourself, it just sounds dreamlike, very sorted. And I'm so glad to hear that. I also want to hear about your journey with Kushagra. Tell us a little about him as a person, what qualities are distinctly yours and what qualities are distinctly Sanal's, how he is coming about to be as a person.
We are absolutely blessed to have Kushagra. The journey to have him was wonderful. I was kind of doing a bit of research about children before we actually planned to have children.
Mhm.
And for me, the most common point was that you got to be like 100% prepared mentally
Yeah,
that you got to have children. Several times you kind of doubt yourself that did you really want this?
yeah,
Did you want to be in this scenario? Possibly no. But then, yes, that is where you got to point yourself and say back, no, it was my decision to have a child. I think we were very blessed when we started planning for Kushagra. It happened immediately. Kushagra was amazing till the time he was in the tummy. He was perfect, disciplined, right on time, baby. When he came into our lives, it was amazing because a lot of it also got to do with your partner and the environment you have to bring a child in. I
yeah,
think, given that we've always had that love, care, and peaceful environment, it was amazing. Like, I don't think there was a lot of things which changed when
yeah,
the child was born and then the child kind of joined in the family. I think it was wonderful. I think what a distinct characteristic of mine is with Kushagra is that I think he's really thoughtful and kind. Those are some very important qualities for me as a person. These are qualities which someone requires lifelong, and I
yeah,
hope he kind of continues to do so and be so. And from Sanal, I think he's got the wisdom. He is very wise.
yeah,
Sometimes I feel that he's a bit too wise for his age. He kind of puts in these profound thoughts, and you don't realize that he's kind of said something so profound. And then I kind of go back and think about it. And then I was like, okay, I know that you should not compare, but when I think about myself as a 7 year old, it's like, I don't think I would be thinking in such direction as a 7 year old. It's a great inherent quality which he's picking from him.
you said profound wisdom. Can you share some of those little nuggets?
I'd like to share two here. The first one is we had a dog by the name of Scotch. She was a black Labrador, and she was someone Sanal had got in around 13 years back.
Uh-huh.
And he was single handedly raising her, and I was really attached to her. And she was wonderful, beautiful dog. Last year, she was a bit too old for her age,
Yeah.
and she was in a lot of distress, and she was not doing very good
Yeah.
physically.
Mm.
So when Kushagra visited visited her and realized he's obviously seen happier, playful, amazing versions of her.
Yeah.
And last year, when he visited her, he kind of saw her that she was not doing very well physically and she was in a lot of pain. He did not, obviously, children don't like the pain and distress.
Yeah.
And because it was one of his favorite people as well, he was, he was a bit taken back when she passed away.
Yeah.
But he kind of told me this one a very beautiful sentence, that I hope she finds her rainbows in heavens, because she was in a lot of pain in this world.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she would be in a better place and she would be reborn. And, maybe she's going to get different colors this time.
That's really, I'm having goosebumps as I hear this. It's beautiful. And I'm sure there is something of the child individually as well, but there is a lot of the parents that comes with it. So beautiful to hear his version and how children teach us so much. I am just so touched with his kindness.
Yeah, no, thank you, Neha. I think he kind of gets it in equal parts from both of us. A very well known phrase that in a world where you can be anything, be kind. We're just trying to kind of ingrain a little bit more in it. But I think eventually he's kind of picking it up by himself. And that's just the kind of personality he is. Other incident which we had was in a flight. Kushagra and I were traveling alone. There was a lady beside us who had three children. She was taking along with her just by herself. Her daughter, who was 11 years old, she was not well. So she was throwing up in the airplane. She asked for help from the stewardess, and they did not have tissues. It was, I think, right after pandemic. So they were on low supply. And of course, traveling with a child, you travel with everything. So I had wet tissues, I had dry tissues, I had towels. And then when she was asking about these things, I was kind of providing it to her. And I think Kushagra was 4 years old then. His eyes were like lit up magically. And at the end, he was like, "You're like a magician. You have everything in your bag." He was amazed that we could help her, and the child obviously felt a lot better. I think the sharing part and the
Yeah.
fact that if someone is in need, you help them with whatever you have. I think that is also something he also teaches us, and we teach him back. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a vicious circle.
Or a virtuous circle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well said.
Beautiful. How has it been physically and mentally? How have you been taking care of yourself and Kushagra and Sanal in the process?
A whole lot of credit goes to the routine which I've had. We've been here in Dubai for the past 12 years. One of the earlier companies where I was working, they had very intensive health and fitness program. I think it all starts from there. They were like the torch bearers of how fitness kind of makes us better version of ourselves. This was at a stage where I wasn't very keen on fitness, but when I started integrating fitness into my day-to-day routine, I realized the potential you can actually have mentally, physically, everything. I think you just become the best version of yourself. You can do so much more in a day without being tired, run out, or you would literally crib nothing because
Yeah.
you wouldn't have time for cribbing. You'd rather kind of do the next task than actually
Yeah.
crib. The fitness thing played a really major role. I'm an avid runner, so I go about and run anywhere around 3 to 5 kilometers every day. Yeah, that's something I've been doing for the past decade. The runner has not had their run for the day. They crib a lot. I think that happens to me quite a lot. So I end up going for a run every single day. The normal day starts for me somewhere around 3:30 to 4. I go for my run, come back. I try to make a meal for ourselves, which is basically lunch and dinner,
Uh-huh.
and then breakfast, pack up the snack boxes. So I get like 3 hours. By 7, we are all ready and out of the house. We go drop Kushagra first, then I get dropped, and then Sanal goes away. And we have the entire day. We all come back home. We have a part time help. So Kushagra gets picked up by the part time help. He comes home earlier, but now he's in a routine where he can come, change his clothes, get his own food, eat his own food, do his activities for the day. By the time I'm in the evening around 5:30, and we get these amazing 2 hours in the evening if he doesn't has an activity to go out for. And that is something I really look forward to. So if there is any pressing work which needs me after 5 p.m., I try to kind of delay it after his bedtime. I do come home by 5:30. We spend these amazing 2 hours. Both of us get our dinner at 7. Sanal usually works a little late, so he joins in around 9 in the night. So on weekdays, it is a different pattern. And on weekends, when we all have time, it's basically the three of us together, completely like consolidated. General day is it ends at 7. We have dinner together. I put him to bed, and that bedtime is something I really look forward to. He reads quite a lot. In the last 7 years, there's been maybe less than 5 times that I've not read to him. I think it's an amazing trait to have, to
Yeah.
develop. I think as individuals, it completely de stresses you. I've made it a point to read him every single day, and now he's at a point where he can read it. So we kind of take 30 minutes out and read to each other. He goes down bed really de stressed. Like, I could see how the reading de stresses him. I think it's the voice and the words together which puts them into deep sleep. It works magically. After he sleeps, I try to, if there is work, I try to catch up on work. If there isn't work, I go about to my reading. I try not to do screens in the night. That's the only time I get. If I do screens, getting to sleep immediately after screens is not ideal. So
Yeah.
I do try to read a little in the night, and then hit the sack by 9 or maximum 9:30 in the night, because then I again need to wake up in the morning. I really love that 7 hour sleep. Talking about Sanal generally works a little later
Yeah.
compared to us. So he does get home a little late than us. He comes home and he manages his meal. He goes to sleep a little later. But then what we do in the morning is we all wake up a little early. So we get this extra 30 minutes, just the three of us. We talk about events, we talk about Wordle, we talk about crosswords. These are things which we try to talk in the morning. These are the things we like to talk about as a family. And then there is a whole lot of sports involved. My son is an avid follower of football and F1,
Yeah.
and I think it all gets passed down from Sanal. So he has been following the game for the last 4 years, I think since he was 2.5. And right now, his knowledge is almost at par with Sanal. And
Wow.
Sanal knows a lot. He's been following it for, I think, good 20, 30 years basically. It's good to see these guys be in their element and talk stats and talk about players and talk about strategies. And I think sports as an addition, it brings so much to, for any individual, be it a child, be it an adult. It just teaches you so much more. The act of giving it your best, being humble, fighting for that win, and
Yeah.
being consistent, and the resilience of players. If these good things we pick up on, I think it slowly, steadily does transform us into better individuals. It gets us that daily dose of motivation,
Yeah.
which is essential to have.
Where does Kushagra get his sport knowledge from?
I think in the last 2 years, he's been starting to. So for F1, he will be watching everything. He'll be
Yeah.
watching the qualifying. I mean, he starts with the practice session. So it's going to be practice one, practice two, practice three, then the qualifying, and then the finals. And when he's watching these, he would ask me to kind of, pitch in and kind of sit in there and
Yeah.
observe this. He would be asking me questions at the end of it. It's kind of a joint learning right now. I'm being coerced into a situation where I need to learn these for my own better knowledge and
Yeah.
be prepared anytime, because we have like random quizzes in the house. Sanal is actually really good in quizzes
Yeah.
and I'm not. So when we have these quizzes, it's very apparent for him to see mom is not doing well, so she needs a little bit of help. So he does help me, educates me, and
Yeah.
then the expectation is that if I've educated you, you've got to learn this, and the learning has to be embedded. You can't just forget it. I think as children, it's like it's good in a way, because what is important to them should be important to parents, and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Because as parents, we have n number of things we want the children to be good at. We want them to be thorough at. If the child thinks the same, it is a great experience for both. There are several things I did not know before Kushagra. Recently, he's in this phase where he is researching the worst plane crashes in the entire world. So he kind of follows this technical expert who kind of talks about the biggest crashes, and these crashes are, some of these are like 100 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and he go to the technicalities of it. He knows the technical difficulty it has had that has led to the crash. He is aware of the stats of the captain, the sub captain, and the number of passengers. And I do like research, but
Yeah.
then this is like, so in depth. Then he would go about and tell you the entire incident, and at the end of it, he'd ask you, so how many passengers were there?
How does it work out with his group of friends? Is that a commonality? Does he stand out amongst his friends?
I think he does stand out because his topics are varied for his age. There are children who have common interests, not so much in depth into particular topics as such. What we also do is we don't go about and judge him on the topics that he has himself picked up. I think as parents, that is a really proud moment, that a child would think that this would be a topic they would invest their time in, because for them their time is so limited. Even if they think about investing their time into something, I think as parents we just need to support them so much more, and
Yeah.
if they need any help. So when I was talking about the plane crashes, he actually had zero help from his parents, and he's
Mhm.
figured out the major crashes in the last century basically all by himself. And it was only after he learned all of that he kind of presented it to us. So that was like an astounding moment for me. I don't compare my child to anyone. Every child is amazing, and every child is amazing to their own best.
Yeah.
Comparing, I don't think it does good to anyone. We don't want child robots around the same
Yeah.
specs
Yeah.
everywhere. I think individualism is what makes everyone unique, child and adult. When they get that, they are so much more happier, better, confident versions of themselves.
And Jyoti, I am going to touch upon something that has been playing in my mind since you started talking about the three of you as a unit. In our general understanding, as we are moving towards nuclear families, we always think that the child is not getting the best of family or the society and the social relationships around him, and that dose is missing. But when you talk about your family, it sounds so whole. It, I don't know what it is, but it comes across as so wholesome and there is nothing missing. Have you cultivated this sense of completion? How does it come about? I am intrigued. I am in so much awe as to how at peace you are with the little unit that you have built for yourself in a stranger country.
That's a wonderful question, Neha. Yes. So to talk about the little unit we have, I think when we had Kushagra, we were pretty clear that we just wanted one child.
Uh-huh.
So for us, the certainty of 100% having a child
Yeah.
was there. And we knew that, it's going to be the end game is just the three of us.
Yeah.
And at that scenario, that makes you think, whom would you invite in this little family?
Yeah.
Who are the people who are required? Sanal and I, like, we are both professionally busy.
Yeah.
We understand that. But at the same time, our priority, for Kushagra, I think has never changed.
Mm-hmm.
And we realize that any other thing is secondary. So
Mm-hmm.
for us to go about and say yes, like, he has really simple requests, like, just sit down and play Uno with me for 10 minutes. Until unless it is like a professional deadline which I'm meeting, I
Yeah.
would drop everything down. I would, if I'm cooking, I'll drop that down. If I'm cleaning, I'll drop that down. Whatever it is, I'll drop it down and I'll do that 10 minutes, because we've understood that how important that is, for a child. There was a brief phase in the middle where we were stretched out thin in all directions, both Sanal and I. And I think it lasted only for 2 months, but it was very prevalent. So what happened was, Kushagra used to come to us and he'd be like, let's do this and let's do this. And we were like, not right now, just give us some time and we'd get back to work. And then we would get back to him. And then by that time, he would be like, I think I'm done. I don't need it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So the habit of saying no came back to us like 2 months later. We would ask him, Kushagra, let's go about, sit, do this activity. He'd be like, no. And then we'd be like, let's go about, sit and play. Oh, no. He's like, no. Let's do board games. No. For everything he liked, he would clearly say a no. And this is something we kind of backtracked and we realized that, it came from us.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they just replicate behavior. I think the observation skills are brilliant.
Yeah.
I think what you put in is what you get out. For us to be a little more thoughtful of that is something I understand. We have like tons of things, in our to do lists.
Yeah.
But at the same time, dropping that to do list for 10 minutes actually plays a whole lot of difference, which
Yeah.
is what we've seen in our experience. So for us, because he's always the priority, we've always made things secondary. It's not like 100% of the times he asks us and we are available and we kind of go about and do it.
Yeah.
But I would say around 70% of the times, and the good thing is, like, he's also in an age where he realizes that there are things, which needs to be taken care of
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
So he now himself kind of says that, I got to do this. But if you're doing something, you take your 10 minutes and then you can come back.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is good to see. And
Yeah.
it works out amazingly for us. So as a unit, I think because we always show up for each other,
Mm-hmm.
I think the showing up part is very important. So if there was any of Kushagra's event, Sanal and I make it a point that either of us has to be present there. We've
Mm-hmm.
never been in a scenario where the child is without a parent, because it's heartbreaking to see that. The act of showing up kind of gives him a lot of confidence in us, and vice versa. Like, we also love the confidence we have in him as a child,
Yeah.
growing up, and his behavior, the traits, the things he brings to the table. Actually, like, he
Mm.
also is a little strong on his personality, and has opinions. One of the things I really like about him is that he can communicate. So
Mm.
there are situations where I, as a person, would not know how to communicate, but he, as a person, can communicate. And I think that is a skill which I would like him to have throughout life. Yes, we do have like a really nice, healthy unit, but of course, we also look out for society. We have a couple of friends in Dubai. We keep visiting them. We have friends who have children, so we take Kushagra along. Kushagra goes well with all children. He loves the social time. He is very chatty as a 7-year old, so he has this radical honesty, and I think that's something people really like about him. So yeah, he goes on really well with everyone, and at the end of the day, he understands the fact that we have to be kind, thoughtful, and nice to others. He realizes the fact that if there is something bad, you got to come up to your parents to mention that, not have conflicts like those. And of course, they're children, like, they're naughty, sometimes there is a little here and there, which
Right.
happens a lot. But at the same time, I think we've never had Kushagra in a situation where he has behaved badly with a child, or there's been any conflicts. He's really, like, I think he's an extrovert. He loves people around,
Uh-huh.
and that is where Sanal and I kind of had a bit of trouble, because we're both introverts, and
Yeah.
sometimes we just look at each other and we're like, whose child is this? And the kind of talking we got to do during weekends. So at
Yeah.
the end of a weekend, we are like, oh my God, that's like talk I would have done like in a year's time. But he goes on and on and on. And strangely, nothing he kind of talks is silly. So it's kind of pretty on point. To answer him, you got to be precise as well. Like, you can't
Mhm.
make him go around a bush. He'll
Well, it's so interesting how you mentioned, I just want to be a fly on the wall and, keep seeing you guys live it out. It just feels so inviting, so warm, something to look forward to. But I'm also intrigued, in such a busy life, how do you physically make time for it? How were the initial weeks, months, years?
I think, Neha, for that, I think we've kind of did that like on day zero when this guy was born. Throughout my entire pregnancy, he was the most disciplined child. I did not have any symptoms. I had no swollen feet. I had no morning sickness. I had nothing at all, to a point where I had to ask the doctor that, is everything all right? And she was like, why do you need the symptoms? You're all right. He was really nice, like, since the time he was born on his due date. There was no issues at all. He comes in, and so the way you describe it is basically the regulator and the facilitator part. We were both regulators and facilitators from day one. So when Kushagra came in, I think we're very organized as a family. That made things so much easier. When Kushagra was born, I asked my mom and dad to kind of come in for a couple of months. So
Yeah.
they were here, and my mom is amazing in a way. She's going to tell me, this is how I do it, and you choose your way. Because if she would say that this is how you do it, I would never listen. I think that makes it so much easier. And we had a very good plan. Like, since Kushagra was born, I was doing a lot of pumping, and I used to also
Yeah.
pump at office. So the maternity leave in Dubai is 45 days. It's actually a little on the lower side. If you kind of club it with your annual leaves, you get a longer stretch as such. Kushagra was born on his due date. I was working like 2 days before he was born, like complete schedule.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And when he was born, I kind of took 3 months off. I clubbed my
Uh-huh.
maternity leave along with my annual leaves. He was almost 3 months old when I went back to work. But in those 3 months, I did not feel, don't want this to sound crude,
Yeah.
but we had zero issues. I think a lot of it came because we were so prepared. His schedule to be fed was amazing. And I think he's one of those lucky children who used to sleep like 10 hours straight in the night,
Yeah.
every single night. So
Yeah.
that was like a big plus point. We had a feeding scenario where one night I would wake up. I used to anyways wake up in the night to do the pumping. There were alternate nights. So Sanal would wake up one night and I would, and because my mom was at home with Kushagra the entire day, we used to let her sleep the
Yeah.
entire night. And Sanal and I used to alternate every night. He knew exactly where things were. He would help himself. There's never been an instance where he'd be like, where is the milk? And, how do I warm this? Because I think he kind of observed and he made himself literate in the entire
Yeah.
process. Also, talking about Sanal, I think he was really prepared as a father. I
Mm-hmm.
think much more than I was prepared to be a mother, because he kind of reads extensively. So he read in and out of it. And just the way he held him like the first time, there was absolutely no fear. Bring it on. I'm ready for this. And that confidence was amazing to see. It was amazing because, you kind of have that strength in your
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
That makes you kind of, I think, do a little harder things.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything hard at that point. I had
Yeah.
a very normal delivery, and I think because I was so fit, I was back on my feet in 2 days' time. I was extensively running and swimming and
Mm-hmm.
doing weights when I was expecting Kushagra. The way we went to the hospital is also quite a story. He was due on Boxing Day, which was just one day after Christmas. On 25th night at around 3 o'clock, I was like, Sanal, I think my water broke. So he was like, okay. So we just casually called in the hospital. Mom and dad were there. We were like, you guys sleep. It's 3 in the night. We'll make
Yeah.
it ourselves. And we went in the hospital at 3:30, and the doctor was like, oh, Merry Christmas. And it's amazing, like the lights are out and everything, and
Yeah.
everyone's having that Christmas cheer. And she's like, yes, your water did break. Why don't you keep yourself comfortable? And then so my labor went on from 3:30 all the way till like 6 in the evening. And till that time I was like very, very, very particular that I do not want epidural. I know I can do this for myself. But by 6 o'clock, I was like completely out of breath. And I was like, okay, I think I need a little bit of help. So I kind of put my foot down and I asked the doctor, I think I do need help. And the epidural went through, and he was born by 6:30.
Oh.
So yes, it was that quick, like the entire chain of things happening. And he was perfectly all right. We spent the night together. We brought him home 2 days later.
Yeah.
His feeding was good. His stats were good. Everything was well. And then when we got him home, with the feeding and the bottle and everything, one of the important points of wisdom my mom kind of reminded me was that you got to go back to a job.
Yeah.
So it is very important for the child to understand, the dynamics of a bottle. I was like, but I'm still here for 90 days.
Yeah.
But she was like, children surprisingly kind of learn quite a lot in the early days as compared to the latter. So
Yeah.
do it. And
Yeah.
that I think was like a really good point. He did, I mean, of course, when I was in office, he used to kind of feed, and the bottle was really helpful. I think it was a smooth sail. But yes, the pumping, everyone knowing each other's
Yeah.
schedule, who's doing what. I think because we were so organized and we had so much confidence in everyone around, we used to delegate left, right, and center. There were
Yeah.
like very few things which I had to do by myself, but it was amazing. Like the 3 months with him in the beginning was amazing. We got to see him like become a little bigger, where
Yeah.
he would smile and laugh and all those things. And then when I got back to work, I used to be back home by like 5 in the evening, and I
Uh-huh.
used to get that 3 hours with him. He used to sleep by 8, and then he used to wake up 6 in the morning. So I
Yeah.
used to get that 3 hours with him in the night, and then I used to get that 1 hour, 2 hours in the morning with him. It was all very, very easy. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say at a particular time, any particular point where I would say that this is something which did not go right or this is
Yeah.
something I would like to improve. But I think just everyone on the team, Sanal doing his bit, me
Yeah.
doing my bit, my mom helping out, it's amazing. Like my mom is a very happy person.
Mm-hmm.
So to leave your child with a happy person is
Yeah.
such a big boon. It was wonderful.
Your mother, when did she go back and what happened when she did?
The way we used to get my mom was like we used to get her on like 3 months visas. For the first year, I was very particular of my mom to stay around. So for the first year, she would stay like the first 12 months.
Yeah.
And then after 12 months, like when he turned 1, he was a little more independent. That is when we got a full-time nanny for him.
Yeah.
So the nanny used to take care of him when we used to go to work at 8 in the morning, and she used to be there with him by 5. Of course, because it's a nanny, and the nanny was actually someone I knew, and that
Oh.
was an amazing plus point to have. And I knew he would be safe. We, of course, had cameras everywhere in the house,
Yeah.
and we would watch him, like, what is he doing? When is he eating? When is he sleeping? And all those bits. But the camera and the fact that a known person is around was so much more easier. And we did continue with the full-time nanny all the way till the time she had to go back to Philippines.
Oh,
So she was there with us for 2 years. It was amazing because I needed her more than anyone.
yeah.
And I will not shy away from saying that. But yes, I think she was the most needed person in my life at that time.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to have her. Another person, whom you can trust with
Right.
a child as small as that. When she went after 2 years, that time Kushagra was around 2.5 years,
Yeah.
and we were just kind of looking for schools. Given that he was born in December, we were trying to calculate exactly which curriculum would he
Yeah.
fit into so that he can go about and start his schooling. Plan was for him to start somewhere after 3, but he went into an interview of one of the schools, and at 2.5 years, he got admitted. So we were quizzing ourselves that is he ready? Is he not
Yeah.
ready? So unfortunately, this guy started schooling at 2.5 years. But I think with children, you kind of realize when they are ready to kind of go on to the next level.
Yeah.
And with Kushagra, it was amazing for him to play at home, but he was not being mentally stimulated. For that, he had to step out. He had to see people his age, be in environments which gives him other than playtime. When he started going to the school, it was amazing. He absolutely loved it. Given that he is an extrovert
Yeah.
child, he loved having people around, different kind of people, the teachers. He talks to his teachers as much as he talks to his classmates. I think it also comes to the fact that we talk to Kushagra like he's an adult.
Yeah.
So we don't use verbiage which is meant for children. I think he's picked that on pretty strong early on. He can actually converse in equal bandwidth between adults and children. For him, it doesn't matter, the size of a person or the shape of a
Yeah.
person, or,
Yeah.
the age of a person. If he wants to communicate to you something, he's going to say you exact same way as he would say it to a 7-year-old.
I think that's such a fascinating part because how do you teach a child that other than doing it yourself? That's the only way you.
Right, right. And that's where I say that, I think their observation skills are amazing. But this is all the tidbits which they pick up in the house when observing a conversation between parents. Like,
Mm,
Sanal and I, we kind of talk to each other like equals. So we talk a whole lot of thinking part,
mm,
the doing part, and all of that.
mhm.
And that is something which he's picked on. So his bandwidth is exactly at the same level as ours. Of course, we kind of decided early on that we would not talk to him like a child. It's not like we're taking away his childhood away from him, but
Yeah.
at the same time, we did not want him to be. I think for children it's confusing because once you say the washroom is in another terms, you
Yeah.
got to say it for the first few years, and then you got to resort it back and then kind of say that, oh, that's actually the bathroom. So that's kind of
Yeah.
change of plans right
Yeah.
there. We went about saying the exact same names from the very beginning for him to kind of understand. And he's got that very ingrained in himself. For Sanal and me, it's like if you're doing something, if I'm like, can you pass on the scissor? And he passes on a scissor, and I'm like, thanks. And he's like, why are you thanking him? So these
Mm,
were his initial questions. And I was like, because I asked him to pass the scissor and he passed it, so I have to thank him.
mm,
So he was like, but you guys are married. So I was like, so these are like basics building up in their heads.
yeah.
And I'm very happy to say that Kushagra follows a similar strategy, and he goes about and says thanks and sorry. And, I don't have to remind him that these are like the precious words you got to
Yeah.
repeat.
Yeah.
If there is a situation which requires so, you got to say it out loud.
How did you two decide this is going to be your way or this is going to be your philosophy? Was it something that you wanted to do from the very beginning? Was it a shared value that you wanted to foster? Or was it seeing kids around and how they are being raised? Maybe this is what we want to pick up and this is what we don't want to pick up. How did it happen?
We actually didn't analyze any of those things. We just
Uh-huh.
realized what works best for us. And we were like, it's going to be really inconvenient if there is a third person in the house who's going to have these different sets of names for us
Uh-huh.
to follow through. So, in terms of convenience, we're like, the best convenient thing is for everyone to be on the same page. And that is how we went about and did that.
That's so simple. It's just so simple, and I this is making me
Yeah.
realize why do we make it so complicated? It's just
No, No, I think Neha, what you're saying is correct. Like we should definitely give it a good thought. But that is, so you say, right? If it is not broken, you don't need to fix it. So with Koshagra, when he was coming in the house as a baby, we didn't have like real talks about it. But of course, Sanal and I are really private people. We love our privacy in our house.
Yeah.
So we were like a bit apprehensive that, how is this third person going to come in?
Yeah.
But he came in and he just fit in like a piece of puzzle. So never have we ever questioned or had any issue with him being around the house. I don't think we've had a scenario where we've kind of been in a room and we've asked him to step out of the room, because just the way we are. So he's kind of made himself a really important third wheel. It's so much in balance. I think we do little bits here and there without realizing we do it,
Yeah.
and without speaking about it, without saying it out loud, without discussing it. When we kind of bring these different energies into it, it just is like it's an amazing vehicle to be in. I'm really really happy with the decision of having a child. It's, as you said, it's like the most fulfilling thing you would ever do. The fact that what you do or how you do things or how you behave directly impacts the child so much that you can see it in an instant what you have done. In a bad scenario, it would play out really bad. I mean, I don't think anyone would like to be in an embarrassing situation with a child. And
Yeah.
for that, the fact that we proactively design a place where the child behaves properly, rather
Yeah.
than going about and having that situation where you got to
Yeah.
be preventative, cover up, or however you'd like to handle the
Yeah.
situation. These kind of things is good, because it's been working with us really well. The fact that Kushagra is his own, he has his own individuality. We never in a situation would tell him not to do this,
Mm-hmm.
not to do that. There are varied instances. Like right now, he is in a stage where he loves to play video games. I think as a person, for me, like video game, because I was in my house, I'd seen my brother play video games, and then I'd seen Sanal play video games,
Yeah.
but I was never that kind of person who would sit in front and kind of do like a PlayStation night at all.
Yeah.
But the other day, I think around a year back, he asked me, so he is into video games, and he, like, Sanal kind of supports that.
Mm.
And he's kind of becoming, his level is kind of improving. So he's kind
Yeah.
of doing good. For me, I don't think I've given it a thought about how it is. But a year back, he asked me to play the game he was playing, and it was FIFA. And I was like, okay, this looks easy. And then I was playing against him, and I realized how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And that is the time, I realized that this was like a judgment in my own head that it's going to be easy. But if
Yeah.
it is so easy, why can't a 39-year-old adult do it if they've not done
Right.
it?
Right.
And this is again like a skill which kind of goes on and improves in the due course of time. So for a child to kind of understand that and wanting to do that, I have, in the past year, I have eased it out so much more, because I realize as an adult, I can't do it. So it is a
Yeah.
difficult thing to do. You just got to slot it out. For a lot of parents, the question is screen time, like
Yeah.
what is the average time? So for me, it's very easy. You do your activities, I will give you 30 minutes to go upon and have your screen time. It's completely all right. You go about and do that. The extreme behavior is something
Yeah.
what we don't do. I think we
Yeah.
are very balanced in a way. You got to do your studies, of course. There's no shortcuts to
Yeah.
that, which you need to take responsibility of, which he does gladly. So that is good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also kind of go about and tell him, yeah, you can do that. Like you can go about, play your video games, you can go about, play cricket, all of that is acceptable. But at the same time, you got to put in your work. There needs to be no laziness, there
Yeah.
needs to be no ifs and buts, and there needs to be no excuses. Making them understand that is very important. I think the children of this generation are really interesting, because they know a lot of things, but then their focus is like it just goes so fast from one to another to the third. You and I would do one task in the three tasks that these guys do, but their focus is
Yeah.
good. And small examples is like, Kushagra is like reading something, and we're sitting in the living room and reading, and I can see him, he's just kind of flipping through, and he's finished an entire book, and I'm like, did you really finish that entire book? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, maybe you've not got anything out of it. So I go about and ask questions in the book, and he mostly gets them right. So not only does it look easy, they can actually do. Children of Kushagra's age, they need to learn the willpower and resilience to do a little harder things for themselves.
Yeah.
So one of the examples of this was, we have a hiking trail in Dubai, which is
Mm,
around 8.5 kilometers.
mm.
And we took Kushagra for his first experience, which was around 6 months back. He did halfway through, and then he was like, I can't do it. And then we came back. We're like, okay. Now, in 2 weeks' time, we're like, he is engaged in a lot of sports. I think he's athletic enough. We just kind of thought about it, and we were like, I think he could do it. And
Yeah.
then we gave it another try, and then he went up till like 5 kilometers, and
Wow.
he in his head was still saying that I don't think I can do this. And we were like, we're right here with you. Like, let's all do it together. And he actually finished it. So
Finished
his
it.
timing was, yeah, he did. So we did, like, the three of us, we did it in 3 hours, the 8.5 kilometer trek up there. I don't remember the altitude. It wasn't exactly a plain road. We just wanted him to understand the fact that, sometimes you got to push yourself a little bit more to
And
see what
he's
you're made
all
of.
of 7 years old.
But yes, I think the children, they do need a little bit of push. They are as good as they come right now. Like, I think we
Yeah.
have a golden opportunity in our hands.
Your parenting journey is full of so many valuable lessons and shared growth. And as you said, it's so heartwarming to see that first it was you two and you felt complete, and then when
Yeah.
this third wheel came in and he just fit right in, and now it's the three of you together. It just looks, sounds, seems so complete, so wholesome, and you are growing together as a family, you're growing together
Absolutely.
as a unit. It's just amazing. But I'm also very curious to know, how do you do this balancing various roles? How do you just juggle it all?
I try my best, Neha. Every day, the combinations of all these different roles are different. What I do is try to kind of get the best of every day.
Yeah.
There are, of course, professionally, I would say it is amazing to be a part of the organization I am in right now. It gives me the purpose I have, it gives me the values. It also gives me a good balance between the professional career along with my personal
Yeah.
growth. So that is all the boxes ticked right there.
Mm.
In terms of being, a partner with Sanal, I think both of us are like really easy maintenance people.
Yeah.
So there are weeks where we kind of go on like, given that both our schedules are a bit different, there are weeks where we actually don't get a lot of time to converse 4 or 5 days in a week, and we just sit on a weekend and we catch up. And I don't think any of us kind of thinks about the fact that, oh, we've been counting, you've been missing for 4 days, you've not spoken to me for 5 days. So those kind of things are completely out of the window. We both understand our schedules and our responsibilities, and whenever we find time for each other, we catch up. It is amazing because I still absolutely love spending time with my husband. I would hear him through and through. I
Yeah.
can hear him day and night. I can hear him like 24 hours in a day. He wouldn't talk so much, but still.
I think that's the most romantic thing to hear about a
Yes.
person, because it's, what more does a person want than just somebody's
Correct.
undivided attention?
Yes, no, it is. It is. And the context of varied things we are in, I
Yeah.
think with Sanal, it's always been very consistent. It's been very precious. I think that is something
Yeah.
I really, more than anything, it's just him being there. Like, even if
Yeah.
he's not doing anything, just the presence, it's kind
Yeah.
of absolutely solid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's some of the things which makes me really happy, like day
Yeah.
in, day out. It's, again, we call, like, it's like absolute sukoon,
Yeah.
at that front. In terms of Kushagra, I think Kushagra he's again like very, very low maintenance. He
Uh-huh.
has his questions here and there, but I think it all comes down to like, can I get like 10 minutes of your time? I'd like to do
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, yes, I will drop everything for you. Let's do this first. So that works very nice. In terms of being a daughter, my parents are still back in Jamshedpur, but I
Yeah.
do try to kind of catch up on them. I fly back home at least once a year, and I invite my parents to come on over. My dad is now retired, so he has a little bit more time. It's amazing. Like, just having parents in the house is, you'd have to go about and find them which room they are in, because they're like so quiet. It's like they're meditating in a room without actually
Really?
meditating. I look forward. I really look forward to them visiting us and us visiting them. It's amazing. And I think overall, with everyone, like if we talk about me, Sanal, and Kushagra, I think what we do as a family is if someone is doing something difficult or if someone is doing something for the first time, we just show up there to support them. We put in that extra support and extra feeling that we absolutely love you, being the biggest cheerleaders there could be. That helps quite a lot, and that's exactly why our bond is super strong.
And now we are coming to the end of this journey of our podcast. But before we wrap up, is there a piece of advice or insight that you would like to share with our listeners and other parents who are listening to your story about how to cultivate this sense of joy in this journey?
Yes, Neha, thank you. That's a very, very good question. I think one of the prime things which we could do to help everyone around is like less judgment and more observation and more discussions and talking about growth,
Yeah,
talking about things which impact people. All of that is really important discussions to have, and it really helps. The average question of also like not hooking ourselves up with what is right and wrong, and discussing things in gray, discussing that why things are in gray and how could they be more of this shade versus that shade. I
right.
think that really helps, and I think every family is really an individual unit.
Yeah,
So doing things which kind of really bonds them. So for us, I think as a family, we really love the outdoor activities
yeah,
and the indoors as well. So we've done like several projects during the pandemic. We've all learned new board games. We do that together, and there are board games where we would just kind of lie on the floor laughing just and outside, we go about, we do these hikes, we kind of do some camping outside where
Mhm.
we do everything by ourselves to show that this is how it is done and to learn the basics of everything. But just getting together involved as a family unit where everyone gets to pitch in with different things, that sense of belief and that togetherness, I think it makes lifelong journey. Another thing is childhood journey is like too small. Already counting days. I'm like, in 10 years, he's gonna be in college, he's gonna be
Yeah,
out. That rush of that time caving in,
yeah.
and you have limited time on your hands. You either make the best of it or you make whatever out of it. The clock is ticking, and we should all just strive to be the best of ourselves. I think someone whom, when the child grows up, they'd be like, oh, I'd rather call my mom. So that's going to be a very, yeah, big appreciation, and I really look forward to it. But of course, I understand that we all have limited time, and we should just do the best to kind of invest more time on the children and developing their willpower and resilience and making them really structured individuals.
Such goosebumpy words. Such a joy to listen to you. I could go on and on and on. But thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and giving us a glimpse of your life and your family unit. Your stories are not just inspiring, but they also remind us of the little things that make parenting such a rewarding adventure. And just thank you so much for your time and being here with us.
Thank you so much, Neha, for having me on the podcast. It was lovely, lovely. Absolutely the best to catch up with you after all these years. Wish you all the best. And I hope there's going to be like 100th special episode. Looking
Thank
forward to
you.
that.
Purti. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Parenthood. Remember, every parenting journey is unique, and it's the love, patience, and support we give our children that truly shapes their world. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and share it with your friends and family. The podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever you want to listen to it. Until next time, this is Neha signing off with a heart full of gratitude and a village of voices cheering you on. Stay happy, stay connected, and keep sharing those beautiful stories. Goodbye.